Good morning. A couple of weeks ago, a guy purchased through my eBay page a pair of crossover rebuilds from me. I sell them directly, and I also have a listing on eBay for various crossover rebuilds. Really, the reason for that is just advertising, gets your name out there a bit more. So the normal thing is you purchase that, you post me your crossovers, I rebuild them with new capacitors, check all the inductors, add new wiring and post them back, and then you just fit them. This guy purchased them, made an offer on them, and as I keep so many of these components in stock now, I just accepted the offer. It wasn't too much lower than the normal price. And I messaged him a few times saying, can you make contact? I'll give you my address to post your crossovers to, and then I'll rebuild them and post them back. And then he contacted me to say, actually, could he send the speakers to me? Because he had just bought them. And I said, yeah, okay. But made him aware, obviously, that if I'm then stripping the speakers down, taking his crossovers out, rebuilding them, which was the eBay listing, but then reassembling them as well, there's a lot more labour involved in that. But I said to him, I've repaired quite a few 66s. I've had, I think probably in the last 2 years, 4 pairs here, and countless crossovers, loads of them. The crossovers in these are almost identical to the Ditton 44. Few value capacitor values are different. I think one inductor on the mid circuit's different as well, but otherwise they're really similar. So he said, yeah, I'll get them shipped to you directly from the guy he bought them from. And they arrived via Shipley, and I was not expecting what I received, really. They are beaten up. Like I say, I've probably had 4 pairs here, and by far these are the worst. They don't look too bad from the front, but they're filthy. I don't know where they've been stored. They're covered in dust. There's a lot of mould on the back of one of them, but I'll show you around shortly. The veneer, especially on the back edges, is just chipped and nicked and bubbled up here and there. Yeah, they're not great, and I hope the guy that bought these was aware of that. Yeah, so there's going to be quite a bit more work than just doing the crossovers. I've done the measurements on these, and there's a few things that I don't particularly like. Some ringing in the mid-range, which is a bit concerning. It might be the caps. I've come across that before. And I think one of the woofers might have a bit of cone sag, which isn't the end of the world. But the cabinets, when I'll put the measurements up in a minute, the cabinets, these aren't braced very well anyway, so when you measure them in the spectral decay, you'll see lots of bloom and boom from the cabinet walls. But being a chipboard box with a bit of moisture, the glue gives up, and a lot of these panels are loose. So I've said to him, you know, in order to get them sounding right, that all needs re-gluing, sealing. So there's a bit of work to these. Getting them right sonically is one thing, cosmetically is another. Really and truly, the veneer is, I don't know, if you sanded it back, it would probably come up okay. You could soften out a lot of these nicks and chips. The covers are in a real state. I'll show you those in a minute. But yeah, I think really I'm just going to get them sounding right. Repair the cabinets in terms of resealing them and gluing them back. But I think beyond that, yeah, I'll leave them there. So we'll see. But yeah, let's have a look around them. So the 66 uses, this is the Mark II version. The Mark 1 had a black front. This is the Mark II. These have got the later 12-inch woofer. I think these are the T2600. Earlier versions had the T1600. and you'll see this woofer in the 66, in the 44 as well, and the 25. And Celestion also sold variants of this to other companies to use in their speakers. We've got a big 12-inch passive radiator, or ABR, auxiliary bass radiator, or however you want to describe it. And these are renowned for playing very low. They can play down to about 18 hertz, I think. So pretty good. Then we've got our mid-range dome, which I think is a 2-inch dome, 2.5 inch. I can never remember whether the Mark 1 had the MD 500 or the MF, vice versa with the Mark 2. Never remember. I don't think there's a huge amount of difference between them. I think it's more power handling. But I think the MD was the earlier one, and some people say whilst that can't handle as much power, it's better. So I don't know. And then we've got the HF 2000 tweeter, which don't look in bad condition. Looks like some of the glue has leached a little bit on these, but the mesh covers have come off. 9 times out of 10, when you take the grills off, you find the mesh covers buried somewhere in the cloth, but not the case with these. It's not the end of the world. They're not just there to protect the domes from being pushed in. They do actually aid dispersion, so it would be nice to get the meshes on there. What a lot of people do is buy the mesh covers for the KEF T27 tweeter and fit those on. Similar size, and that does work. But yeah, trying to get originals is really difficult. So both mid-ranges look okay. Mesh is slightly dented here, and the mesh on this one is fairly dented, and this dome looks a bit mouldy as well. A bit concerned about that. But yeah, they're just really dusty and dirty. So we will take them apart, take the crossovers out, and I'll show you around the cabinets as well. And yeah, let's get them sounding right, and I'll show you the cloths as well, all the covers. Right, I've put one of the speakers on the table saw, just so we can have a look around it. So I'm doing this a bit wobbly cam, just so I can show you around it. So from the front, this one isn't too bad. The veneer edge banding is pretty good. Actually, that would probably come up quite well. We've got a nick out here, but not too bad. The side, a lot of these marks and things would come out, and the bottom as well. The bottom is pretty chipped up down here, round here and that. So on the bottom, it's probably not something your attention is going to be drawn to too much. There's a big chunk out the back there as well. So something sympathetic could be done. This side, again, those marks would come out, so it's not too bad. The top on this one, I might have to put this on the floor so you can see it. We've got a bit of bubbling just at the top right there. But then if we come around the back, we've got a lot of chips out here. This back panel has come loose Mouldy down the bottom there. Big gouge here. I don't know what the hell's done that. A tiger. So yeah, not particularly great, but probably something sympathetic can be done without going overboard. So yeah, there's the mid-range I was telling you about. The mesh has been pushed in slightly. I don't know if it's touching the the dome, but it just looks a bit mouldy. So anyway, I'll get the other one and we'll take a look at that. So before I lift this one up, I thought we'd have a quick look at the top of this one. So there's a significant scratch there, a few there. I don't think they've gone through. I think they'd probably sand out, but it's all of this. You know, they've really been knocked around. Again, I could just feather that out. I could fill them and sand them, but yeah, they're not particularly great. Like I say, I think they're probably, well, they are the worst pair I've had. Right, let's lift this one up and take a look. Right, so again, just wobbly cam. Again, like the other, the front is pretty good. The mid driver on this is a bit better than the other. The measurements were pretty similar between them, so I think a lot of the issues sonically is probably crossover related. But we've got significant damage there. Yeah, on the bottom, quite a significant knock there and there. A lot of scratches. More out the chipboard there. I mean, at the top again, the edge banding around here is okay. Inside, not too bad, apart from a big knock there and missing chipboard down the bottom. Again, a lot of mould on the bottom of this, so I think they've been stored somewhere damp. The problem with these speakers is people just sit them on the floor because they're so tall. They don't tend to end up being on any stands or anything, so that's normally the same when they store them as well. They sit them on a concrete floor in the garage, and the concrete, just with these sat on top of them, wicks up some moisture, and before you know it, the bottom of your speaker's rotting out. So right, let's take a look inside one of them and see what we're up against crossover wise. Right, covers as well. So this one isn't too bad. Bit of ripping down the bottom here and bobbling. Pretty filthy as well. Yeah, not too bad. Let's just move that foam. So we're peeling away all over the place. These use a kind of stamped metal frame for the cover. And it's pretty filthy down the bottom there. So the cover goes into some tangs on the top of the speaker, and then you have a screw that goes in from underneath to retain them. And they're a bit of a pig to get on and off sometimes. This one really coming away here. It's like a self or double-sided tape that was used to hold this on, so I might be able to stretch that around. Again, down the bottom, filthy. This one's really ripped down the bottom, lots of bobbling. The top part's alright, so I don't know whether a cat or something has been using it as a scratching pole. Badges are a bit worn away at the top. I go around those with a silver pen and they come up quite well. So yeah, really they want reclothing. They're not my favourite cover to recloth. Also, this one's dented. We've got a big dent there as well. Yeah, they're a bit of a pain to do, but yeah, I'll probably just hoover them, go over them with some compressed air, and pull this round, clamp and glue it, and just tidy them up, I think, at the moment. Sometimes as well with this, if you go over it carefully with some hot air, you can melt back all these loose threads and things and tidy it up. So yeah, these aren't particularly great. A really good pair of these probably goes for £1,000, and a completely mint pair, and I would say if they've been restored to a degree, crossovers done, that sort of thing, maybe £1,200, but yeah, typically about £1,000 for a good pair. I really don't know what the guy paid for these. I hope it wasn't much more than £500. I wouldn't go near these for more than that. I probably wouldn't go near them at all, but everything's fixable. It's just how far do you want to go. Right, let's tear into this one and see what we find. Have a look inside. Right, quite difficult to get this monster in shot really, so hopefully you can see the majority of it. Yes, you can. Right. What I'm going to do with the woofer is just put a little dot on the bottom there, so I know that that was the bottom, so when I put it in back in I can turn it round. Right, okay, so I'm going to clip the cables off because I'm going to solder a new one. So a bit of corrosion on the back of the magnet there. These are aluminium baskets and the back of the magnet's aluminium, so some moisture has got under the lacquer there, but otherwise, yeah, T1600, although we've got the larger dust cap. Confusing. Right, our mid driver, these are quite big, so we'll clip that off as well. Yeah, so this is the MD500, 2-inch dome mid-range, impedance 8 ohms, range 0.5 to 5 kilohertz, nominal loading 80 watts. So yeah, they're a big old piece of kit. So we'll try and clean that up, but I don't think the mesh is touching that dome, so that's pretty good. And of course our HF2000. There we go, yeah, not in bad condition. Right. So foam wise, we've got one piece that wraps around the woofer section. We have just 2 internal braces, so these are like a rectangle with a rectangle cut out of them. They don't do a bad job, but they are a bit bloomy, these cabinets. And then we have 2 sections of foam at the top, triangular, like that, and that. So they just sit at the top, rolled down for the mid-range to sit in there. And then at the bottom, if I slide this along, we'll take the PBR out, or ABR, whatever you want to call it. See that all right? Yep. Right, there we go. That's all they are. just a big lump of foam, suspension, front and back, just tuned to resonate at a certain frequency. That's it. And then foam wise here, a little bit different. We have a small piece that wraps around, keeping clearance from the base radiator because it's quite deep, and then one piece of foam on the back, and that's it. And there's our crossover. So I'll fish that out next, and then we'll give them a damn good hoover up inside, run them round with some sealant, and yeah, rebuild the crossover. Just a wobbly cam look inside. Actually, from the inside they don't look too bad. So yeah, crossover. It's an older type of crossover. Most of the Mark IIs have the circuit board, but yeah, all air core inductors, so not too bad. They're the tangs I was talking about that hold on the front cover. You have to slide underneath that, and then there is a single screw that goes through the bottom there. Right, let's take the crossover out. I will go around it with sealant and then rebuild the crossover. Okay, so I've run around the inside all the joints with my weapon of choice, no more nails. It's just really good for this sort of thing. You can brush around it with PVA and that works pretty well because it sort of soaks in, but you can squeeze this stuff into the joints and it really grabs wood hard. And because, you know, there's quite a smear of it around the joint, it sort of reinforces it to a degree as well. It's just good stuff. Works well. Might not look the prettiest, but yeah, you're not looking inside. So yeah, trying to go around all the corners, all the joints, and also underneath. Can't get the gun in there, so you have to kind of wipe it in with your finger. But yeah, so I'll do the crossover now and then tidy up the drivers for this one, and once that's all gone off, everything can go back in. Again, the stuff goes off pretty quickly as well, and normally within an hour or so. It's not far off being hard, so yeah, there we go. Right, so this is our crossover, and as I mentioned before, it's basically the same as you'll find in a Ditton 44. I think that inductor is a different value. This on a 44 is a 6 microfarad, on the 66 it's a 4. We've got a 4th order arrangement on the woofer. These are all 72 microfarad, which is the same as on the 44. We've got a 24 microfarad cap here. Sometimes that's a 30. I think it becomes a 30 if we use the MF 500. And I think that inductor value changes between the two mids as well. I might be wrong. We've still got 4 microfarad and a 6, same as we've got on the 44. And you'll often see this actual board in a 44 where it says top, so faces upwards, D for Ditton 66. You'll often see that exact board in a 44. I think all the 66s have air core inductors, whereas the 44 you'll sometimes find iron core, on both the woofers circuit and the shunt, which is that one on the high pass on the mid circuit. So yeah, so I'm going to strip off all these caps and we'll quickly test them as well, check the inductors as well, put the values on them, and then put the new components on. So I won't bore you with that. See you in a minute. So that's all the caps removed. So now what I want to do is check these inductors. There really isn't anything to go wrong with them, but I always test them. I think it's just good practice. So we got 3.43, So that's the first inductor we come to on the woofer, and 2.1. millihenry on the next inductor. So fourth order arrangement, so inductor, cap down to ground, inductor, cap down to ground, out to the woofer. So that gives us a 24 dB per octave roll off. So let's check this inductor. 2.1 again. These are the same on the 44s as well. Obviously by testing one, I can reference it with the other as well. I think this is quite a small value, if I remember. Yeah, so 0.32 millihenry. Okay. So this one dictates how high the mid-range will play. I think in the 44 that's like a 0.6 or something like that. Can't remember from memory. And this is quite a small value on the tweeter. 0.11 millihenry. So second order high and low pass on the mid circuit, third order high pass on the tweeter circuit. Right, I'll get the new caps in and then add new wiring. Right, so new felt pads on the board, ready for the new caps. I always do that. The old ones just fall apart, but yeah, I always put those on. Right, let's just check our old caps and see where we are. Right, we got a 24 which is on the mid circuit, and that's reading 30. So 2.4 would be 10%, so we are about 20% out on that, so that's not good. Right, one of the 72s, 89, call it 90, so flipping heck, 7.2 would be 10%. So yeah, getting on for 20% again. The other 72. Jeez, that's basically 100 microfarad. That is awful. Right, now our little 4. .08, so that's pretty good. The caps on the tweeters. These aren't as bad as the other Erie caps they used, but 9 times out of 10 the reason the tweeters fail is because of these caps. So this cluster here should be a 6. Uh, 0.62, so that's not too bad. Like I say, these tend to hold up quite well. Blimey, 2.68. Normally they go the other way. Mad. Okay. Well, so basically all the old L caps, at least 20% out, if not more, apart from my little 4. Yeah, that cluster which makes up 4, that's all over the shop. So there we go. That's why we changed them, because they're like 50 odd years old. Right, so that's the new caps all in there, and the resistor I add to the tweeter circuit when I use the Celestion capacitors, just to correct the levels and ESR. So yeah, time to solder on new wiring. Right, so that's the crossover done. New wiring soldered on, all ready to go back in. You'll note that the tweeter is connected out phase, the same as it is on the 44. But yeah, all done, all tested, ready to go back in. Right, so while the drivers are out, let's give them a check over and a test up. So this is the mid driver, 7.1 ohms, 0.11 millihenry on the coil inductance. Right, our tweeter. Yep, 5 ohms, 0.02 millihenry, so I'll compare these with the other, but that's absolutely fine. And our woofer, which I also want to give a clean up and treat the suspension as well. Yep, 4.8 ohms, 0.34 millihenry voice coil inductance, so yep, all feels good, a bit dusty, but we'll give that a clean up, treat the rubber, good to go. Right, just while I was beginning to start having a look at the base radiator on this one, we've got a little rip there, which is a bit of a bum. The rest of the rubber's okay, but it's just there. The back's good as well. So yeah, I can glue that, and then I'll go over it with some rubber treatment, but yeah, probably caught this just in the nick of time really. More work to do to these. Definitely not just crossovers, right, so I'm just starting to take apart the other one, and there is a bit of a dent there in the foam on the base radiator. Right, so I'm taking apart the other speaker now. Sorry this is all wobbly cam, but for a speaker that came in just for crossover rebuilds, so far I've spent half a day on these, because we've had some other repairs to do, cabinets and everything else. I've just taken out the other woofer, and there's significant corrosion on the back of that. I doubt it will affect it, but obviously I'll test it and check it up. One of these woofers did have a bit of distortion in it, so quite possibly that one. Feels a bit gritty as well, that one. So yeah, the MD500 looks all right, and our tweeter base radiator, as I mentioned earlier, has got that little dent in it. It's not really going to affect it at all. We've got quite a lot of glue staining and stuff on it as well, so I'm not too sure what that's all about. But yeah, same thing again. I'll fish the crossover out, test it, rebuild it, glue the cabinet up again. If I find anything different to the other, I'll obviously add it to the video, but yeah, I'm going to crack on with this one now, get it glued up and leave it to dry, and then we'll have a quick look at the covers, and then yeah, I think I'll leave it there, and then we'll do a part 2, because this video is going on a bit, where we'll put them back together, do final measurements, and have a bit of a chat about them. Cool. Right, so I'm stripping apart the second speaker now, and the back of, or the bottom of this, is just really bad. That chipboard is all falling apart. It really needs soaking in glue and restabilising. The veneer, it's all coming away there, coming away in the corner. Yeah, that's really lifted off. Puffed up there. I've got a lot of mould that's in the chipboard here. Yeah, I mean, again, gluing them all up inside. This back panel is loose. You can see it breaking away here. Some of the ribs inside are loose as well. This is all a bit puffy as well. Yeah, sonically they'll be fine, but yeah, I don't know how good the pictures were the guy was able to see before he purchased these. I'm assuming he didn't know that they were in this condition. Cosmetically is one thing, but I've had to do a fair amount to these drivers. Obviously repair that base radiator, clean up the woofer, and treat the rubber suspension, test these drivers. The mesh on that I've pulled out as well. We've got our new crossover in that. I'm just waiting for the glue to dry before that can all go back together. But yeah, I'll get back to him with a few options for the cabinets. The covers as well, I'm going to hold fire on those. They really want reclothing, you know, that's not going to be particularly salvageable. So yeah, anyway, let's get this one done. Right, I'm stopping for a brew. Sorry I've been whinging a bit in this video, but it's a bit annoying sometimes when something gets delivered to you when a purchase has been made for one element of the work, and now something that should have taken a couple of hours is now 6 hours in, and I've still got most of this one to do. So yeah, sorry for the whinging, but you know, this is a business and time is allocated for projects, and when they overrun, when you're already a bit flat out, everything else concertinas up. So looks like I'll be spending the rest of the day on these, and then they'll go back together. We'll do a part 2 video, we'll put them back together, and we'll measure them again. Sonically they're going to be good, back to how they should be, I'm sure of that. The drivers are okay, crossovers are now okay, cabinets have been glued, so we haven't got loose panels, but in terms of the finish on the cabinet, yeah, I think I will leave that to someone else because there's a few things I could do with them. Really and truly, they are at the point where reveneering is probably the option. If you really want to get these immaculate again, sanding them, maybe a bit of filler and re-oiling them, they would certainly smarten up, a new cover cloth. The other option is you feather everything out and spray them. They come up like this. So these are a little two-way I've been working on. This veneer was pretty awful, and I've just sprayed them satin black, and it comes up really nicely. Doesn't matter if you've got bits of chipboard exposed, they get blacked as well. So yeah, it's an option, but you know, none of the 66s were available in a black finish. I think it was teak and walnut, I might be wrong. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to conclude this video here because I just want to get on with this one now. I don't think there's going to be anything different I'm going to find, and then we'll do a part 2. Laters. Right, I wasn't really going to, but I am having a look at this cloth, so I've given it a bit of a hoover. I've double-sided taped the end there. This is all coming away, so what I'll do, I'll hoover this and then wrap some more double-sided tape around it. At least to just kind of stabilise it. At least while it's just a sort of makeshift repair, they're not going to fall apart much more, hopefully. I've reclothed a number of these 66 covers, and they are quite fiddly to do. as well. Let's trim that off a bit, get the loose threads off. So I'll probably put some glue in these corners as well, but that's stabilised anyway. It's better.